On May 6th, the Israeli government began its military operation in and around the city of Rafah in southern Gaza, and almost immediately it attracted international condemnation, not just from governments, not just from protesters, but also from the world's top legal minds. But why now? Israel's operation to defeat Hamas has been going on for months, and Israel has been committing human rights abuses against the Palestinians for decades. So what's changed? I'm Mariam Namazi, and this is Pinch Point, where politics and geography collide. On May 26th, an Israeli airstrike hit a camp for displaced people in Rafah. At least 45 refugees were killed, mostly women and children.
There is no security in Gaza. There is no security, not for a child, an elderly man, or for a woman.
The humanitarian group MSF, Doctors Without Borders, treated people with shrapnel wounds, fractures, and burns. MSF denounced the attack and pointed out that it had happened after the International Court of Justice had ordered an immediate stop to the military assault on Rafah. The judges cited the catastrophic humanitarian situation in the city and the huge threat posed to the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who'd sought refuge there. International condemnation of the attack was swift and intense. The French President Emmanuel Macron said he was outraged. German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock and the EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said the ruling by the ICJ judges must be respected. Canada's government used its social media accounts to describe the Israeli attack as horrific.
Palestinian civilians do not have any safe space to go.
Earlier in May, the chief prosecutor at another court, the International Criminal Court in The Hague, announced that he is seeking an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant for crimes against humanity and war crimes in Gaza. Now governments appear finally to be waking up to what protesters have been saying for months, that Israel's policy of forcing more than 1 million Palestinians into so-called safe zones to clear the way for its tanks to move on Hamas is a catastrophic abuse of human rights. But again, why the outrage now? Well, let's go back to those events at the ICC, because never before, never has the court announced an impending arrest warrant of a head of a democratic state that is an ally of the US. But the administration of President Joe Biden is in a bind. There's an election coming up, and poll after poll suggests Americans disapprove of Israel's actions in Gaza. And those polls were taken before these attacks on Rafah. Israel has always depended on the US for support, politically and militarily. These days, that support looks a lot more conditional. At the same time, Israel's PR machine appears to be losing control of the narrative. The spaces where Israel likes to operate are Tel Aviv and Washington, D.C., but now there's a new player in the mix, The Hague, where the ICJ and the ICC sit. Is Israel now on a collision course with geography, international politics, and the law? To add to all that pressure, at the end of May, 3 European countries, Spain, Norway, and Ireland, announced their formal recognition of Palestine as a state. Spain called it the only route to peace in the Middle East. But here's the bottom line. 145 of the 193 countries in the United Nations now recognize the state of Palestine. That's in spite of the opposition of Israel and its main ally, the United States. Whether Israel's attacks on Gaza can be stopped, whether the civilian deaths will end, will depend in large part on how profound the change in the worldview is, and how much international goodwill towards Israel has been lost. Has the major pinch point of the Middle East finally moved into a political space that the whole world can influence? The Palestinians certainly hope so.